Welcome to Ordinary to Badass, episode number 371. In today's episode, we are going to be talking about the 10 myths that leaders face in the workplace, or things you often think about being a leader in the workplace, and they're just not true. So if you think, oh, I don't want to be a leader, I don't want to be a boss at work. Nope. It's too it's too domineering, or I have to have this type of personality. Not the case. Stay tuned because you're going to hear the nitty-gritty as to the myths that we think or the falsehoods we believe, and then the actual truth. So throughout our conversation, we'll dissect the myths that are prevalent in leadership, from the belief that leaders must be flawless, and that micromanagement equals effective communication. We'll challenge these notions and really explore what true leadership means. And you know what? Amidst the myth really lies a treasure trove of wisdom and things we can really bring out and bring to the forefront. And if you realize, okay, that's a myth, that doesn't have to be true for me, then it can help you push forward and push into the leadership role you deserve. Okay, so if you love this episode, make sure I'm going to ask you to do one of two things. Either put it on the gram, and you could tag me at Ordinary to Badass. Just take a screenshot and throw it in your Instagram stories and tag me at Ordinary to Badass. Or the other thing is, you can go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star rating and a review. Words are hard. You can go to Apple Podcasts and leave a 5-star rating and a review. Every single time you do this, it helps other badasses just like you to find the show. And I am so appreciative because you know what? The bigger this badass tribe grows, like the more power we all have, right? The more we're standing in this together. Okay, with that, let's get to the show.
Be confident, be bold, be authentic, but don't forget to take action. This is Ordinary to Badass, where our stories empower women to step into the spotlight of their own lives and pursue what they're truly passionate about. It's time to step into the arena and become more than just extraordinary. It's time to become a badass with your host, Marie Sonneman.
Welcome to Ordinary to Badass. Whether you're ordinary or badass, I am so glad you're here. Today, we're going to talk about the 10 myths that people believe about leaders in the workplace. This is so huge because unless we're talking about the myths, unless we're talking about the falsehoods, then guess what? People are going along believing it or not even like questioning the myths that they're hearing, and they might think it's true. And so we got to address it so that it stops here. It stops with us. So many good leaders are not stepping into leadership roles because they believe these myths. So today, let's debunk those myths, get you into leadership roles in the workplace, because you know what? The world needs more badasses like you as a leader. Okay, myth number 1 is that leaders must be perfect. Man, this simply isn't true. It kind of blows my mind. We often think you got to be perfect. You got to do everything right if you're a leader. And it's like, first, how boring would that be if you had like the perfect leader that never made any mistakes or never admitted their mistakes or what they did wrong? It's like, yuck. Who likes that, right? So oftentimes we don't like it in other people. So why do we expect it for ourselves? But then also it's detrimental to us to think that we have to be perfect. We have to do the right thing every time. And you know what? That's just not true. No human does the right thing every time. No human is perfect. So how do we expect leaders to be perfect? And I think a lot of times it's like we might not expect all the other leaders to be perfect, but then when it comes to ourselves, we think that we have to nail it, we have to do it perfectly. And then it's so easy. You have a boss, and that boss is amazing, and they are killing it. And you're like, oh my gosh, I could never be like them. But what you don't realize is they have 20 years of leadership experience under their belt. You don't see the behind the scenes. You don't see what they've done to get to where they are today. So they might look pretty stinking awesome, but you know what? I guarantee you, behind the scenes, there has been hardship, there has been struggle. And likely, if they're killing it, then they have a lot of experience in leadership. So try not to compare yourself to another leader because, again, you just don't know. There's somebody, I think Brene Brown, she is killing it in the leadership space. And what I really like about her is her talking about authenticity and vulnerability. And she really does talk about how those things are important. And then, hey, what are the right times to talk about it? What is the right time to be vulnerable? If somebody is crappy to you and always shoots your ideas down, no, don't be a vulnerable leader to them, right? You don't have to be authentic. Well, yes, be authentic, but you don't have to be vulnerable just to be vulnerable. Like if it's not a safe space, then don't do it, right? So that's what I like about Brene is she's willing to admit her mistakes. She's willing to admit, hey, I've done this wrong. And she's given speeches about, arguments she's had with her husband or things she was saying in her head about her husband. And really, it has a lot to do with how she grew up and her beliefs that she's had all along, and she just brought them into her marriage, right? But she shares things in a way that's vulnerable, and that helps me connect with her as a leader. So take it from Brene Brown. Really lean into your authenticity. Realize that it's okay to be vulnerable. That can help other people. That can help other people grow and learn and be like, oh, yeah, I can be vulnerable too. I don't have to be the perfect leader. But it starts with you or it starts with someone, right? So if you're not willing to do it imperfectly, then maybe other people won't be either. So the takeaway is accept your limitations, learn from them. You can still grow and be okay with making mistakes, with doing it wrong. That is called life, my friend. Actually, it's called showing up. Because if you're just doing nothing every day, if you're not pushing yourself, then yeah, there's no risk. You're not going to make a mistake because you're not doing anything. But when you're putting yourself out there in a leadership role, say, okay, expect mistakes. That is normal. That means you're learning, that means you're growing. So, yes, perfect leader out. You being imperfect, authentic, vulnerable, in. Okay, let's move on to number two. Okay, number two, micromanagement equals effective leadership. Now, this one kills me. Who in the world likes a micromanager? I, for one, cannot stand it. For me, it tells me, okay, they're not a confident leader. They don't believe in their skills. They don't believe, it tells your employees that you don't believe in their skills either. And so micromanaging, it's toxic in my opinion. It's a way to try to be perfect, to try to get everything right and avoid all the mistakes, but it's really not relying on your people, not relying that they can get the job done. And if they truly do not have the skills, then guess what? That is your job as a leader to teach them the skills. So you teach them the skills when they're new, or you have a trainer that teaches them the skills. And then guess what? They will they will do it the correct way. You don't have to micromanage them. But when somebody's hovering, like, oh, is everything perfect? Is everything okay? What are you doing? Report back to me. That doesn't give anybody confidence. The team is always going to be worried that you're looking over their shoulder. So when thinking of micromanaging, think of Steve Carell from The Office, right? I think Michael was his name, but he was the boss that's like micromanaging everybody, overseeing everything, and it hinders morale and productivity. So don't be like Michael. That doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help get anything done. But here's the thing. There's other negative effects that micromanaging has on your employees. Micromanaging hinders your employees' autonomy, their creativity, their morale, so many things. You're taking it out of their hands to be making decisions. So you're not building up effective leaders. To me, the whole point of being a leader, the whole point of being a boss or a supervisor is to help raise up other leaders, other bosses. So when you're gone, there's somebody to take over, right? Or they can fill another role. But if you're constantly micromanaging them, second guessing all of their decisions, then they're not going to be leaders or they're less likely to be leaders. At least you will not be helping further them in their leadership journey. So make sure you try to find a balance. You try to find a balance between giving them guidance and helping them along and having them take ownership of their own work. Really, the whole thing is you want to have a culture of trust. And if you're micromanaging, that can't happen. Okay, myth number 3. Leadership is about having all of the answers. Successful leaders, they rely on collaboration, delegation, and seeking input from their team members. You really don't have to have all the answers. I remember I was a supervisor and I got moved from one unit to another, and I had no idea how to handle the second unit. I didn't have any experience in that particular area. And so, you know what? I asked the team members, I asked the people that I supervised, and I was honest. I was like, you know what? I'm coming in here. I've never done this before. I have a ton to learn, and I would appreciate it if you help me. And so especially like the senior people, the people that have been in that unit for a while, I relied on them and I used their expertise and that helped me. And then I think it helped them because they're like, okay, she's not coming in here all cocky thinking she knows it all. She's willing to ask the question. She's willing to ask for help. And then also I made the senior person who had been in the unit the longest that had the most experience, I made that person the unit trainer. So that's showing them like, hey, I value your experience. I value what you have to say. And I know that you can train people and it will be effective and it will help the whole team out. So consider that, right? But there's no need to think that you have to have all the answers. Nobody likes a know-it-all, right? But also, it's like if you don't know, you don't know, but you can learn. I don't think that you need to be an effective leader, you don't have to you don't have to know everything about the place that you're leading. You just have to have good leadership skills and be willing to humble yourself and say, "Hey, I don't know. I don't know how to do this. Will you help me? Will you show me?" Because personally, I do like to know what everybody's doing or what the employees are doing, because if I need to explain it, or how can I advocate for my team if I don't know what they're doing on a daily basis. So I do just want to have a overall basic understanding of what it is that they do so that I can effectively make decisions going forward. But you don't have to necessarily go into a leadership role knowing how to do the specific tasks. Your main job is to lead and to bring people together, but it's not necessarily having experience in the nitty-gritty. So don't let that get you down or dissuade you from taking a position that you could be an excellent fit for. There is so much value in a leader that is humble, that is curious. They're humble and willing to learn, willing to admit they don't know it all, but also they're curious. They want to ask questions so that they can get better. They can help the team get better. Like, I wonder how this could be better. Instead of being critical, be curious. It's so important to actively listen, to ask questions of your team, and really to appreciate the diversity of expertise within your team, within your unit. That is so much more important than one person having all the answers. I tell you, when one person thinks they have all the answers, I don't know about you, but I tend to tune out because anything you want to add, anything you want to input, they already think they know it. So what is the point of even talking or listening for that matter? So don't think that as a leader, you have to know it all. Okay, perfectly. Number 4 is on the backs of number 3. Number 3, you don't have to know it all or you don't have to know all the answers. Number 4 is leadership is not a solo journey. This is so important. So often we think that, you know what? I got to figure this out. I got to do it on my own. It looks weak if I ask questions, but it's just not true. Really, asking questions is huge. Asking for help is huge. That's the only way you're really going to grow, the only way you're really going to learn. And there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Really, you can go so much further if it's a team effort, if you engage other people. Again, it comes back to one, you don't have all the answers. And then the other part of it is like, you can't do it all. And sure, maybe you think you can do it pretty good by yourself. And I'm not even judging you because so often I'm not good at accepting help. But the times where I have, I've been blown away by the results. And especially as a leader, it's so important to collaborate. So get your team together, have think sessions like, oh, what could we improve? What could we do with this? What are you doing with this? Just where it's open forum, open feedback. And the more that you do this, I like to involve food. People like food, and maybe it's distracting, like you can eat, but then, feel more comfortable talking or listening while you're eating. Um, yeah, the little things that you can do to involve other people and bring them in, make them feel a part of the team, then that is so powerful. Here's the other thing. There are so many people out there who are willing to mentor you, to help you, to bring you along. Like, yes, you don't have to go up and say, "Will you be my mentor?" Like, you don't have to have that conversation, but just by you asking questions or like, "Hey, can I take you out to lunch and pick your brain a little bit?" And then you ask questions, and if they're willing to answer, they help bring you along. And instead of feeling like you have to like bang your head against a wall, then that's where you find mentors and other people who have been through what you've been through. And I'll tell you what, one of my mentors, as far as leadership is concerned, is my dad. And it's funny because, okay, my dad was a teacher. My dad is and was a coach. And I work in law enforcement. But guess what? Leadership is leadership. It doesn't necessarily matter where it is. So find your mentors and you can pick their brain about things or say, hey, this is what I'm going through. What would you do? And just ask for feedback. And that helps so much. It relieves some pressure and it reminds you, yeah, I don't have to know it all. But also, it's good for the other person too, right? People like to be valued, they like to know that you want to hear their opinion. So don't be afraid to find those people and kind of bounce ideas off of them. Again, it doesn't have to be a formal leader. So remember, it's important. It's important as opposed to going it solo. Invest in community. Make your team, make your unit, make it like a community. Find mentors, people who can help bring you along. And you know what? Maybe it's just a mentor for a season. That's okay. Okay, let's move on to number 5. Number 5, leaders are born, not made. This is just not true. You are not born a leader. I don't think anybody is born a leader. It's things that you've learned throughout your career, throughout your life that have helped you to step into a leadership role at work. And leadership doesn't even have to be a formal like leadership role. It doesn't have to mean that you're a manager or supervisor. You can be an entry level employee and have so much leadership. And it's funny, my one of my little nephews, he's the youngest on his team, but yet everybody's going to him for the answers. Everybody wants to know because he is confident, because he knows a lot about baseball, right? Or he has older siblings who can bring him along. But age has nothing to do with it. If you're confident, if you know what you're doing, if you're willing to help other people, then other people see you as a leader and start to respect you. Leadership skills can be learned. You can always improve on your leadership. And actually, I think you should constantly be striving to improve. Experience, education, self-reflection, all of those things can help you to improve on your leadership skills. Reading books, right? Books have helped me so much improve my leadership skills. So it doesn't have to be something that you're just born with. Now, I remember I interviewed Darlene Green on the podcast, and she had told me, you know what, my dad was in the military. My dad was a leader, so I helped learn leadership skills from him because I grew up with it. But then she also had somebody to like pick, she was able to pick his brain. But not all of us grow up with a parent that's in a formal leadership role. If they are, that's icing on the cake. But all it means is she learned younger. She heard stories and she learned things about it younger. So take the leaders in your life, learn from them. Take mentors, people who've gone before you, learn from them. Read books, watch YouTube. There are so many different things. Of course, Ordinary the Badass, because if you missed it, talking about leadership stuff now, so you can check Instagram. These days, I've been spending a lot more time on LinkedIn, so you can find me at Marie Sonneman. But if you want leadership stuff, find somebody who can help you. Madeline Mann, she's on LinkedIn and Instagram too. I think she's pretty great if you're going for an interview somewhere, if you want a new job. So you find these people and they can help you learn your leadership skills. Just because you weren't born with it doesn't mean that you still can't be a leader. Doesn't mean you still can't be a manager or a supervisor of some type, right? You just got to learn the skills and practice, hone them. Every day when you're at work, you can try something new or you can just get a little bit better, a little bit better. Again, you don't have to be in a formal leadership position to be a leader. Okay, number 6, effective leaders must always be in control. Again, not true. There is a misconception that effective leaders must maintain strict control over their team or organization. Strict control stifles innovation and creativity. Remember when we talked about being a micromanager? That's similar to having strict control over everything. Again, it tells your team that you don't trust them, you don't believe in them. And if one person is controlling everything, then to me, that undermines the whole point of diversity. You want diverse teams, you want diverse opinions. And if you're not getting those, then it's like one track. It's assuming that you know it all. You have all the answers, you know it all. And so you must be in control. Again, I don't think you're a confident leader. If you have to be in control of every single thing, you're not confident in yourself. It doesn't come out that or doesn't give the impression that you're confident of your team. There's something important about delegating and then trusting your employees to do it and just allowing other people to make decisions. A lot of times, if you make a decision and you screw up, I don't know about you, but when I screw up, I don't like it. So then that's like, oh yeah, I'm not going to do that again. Cement that in my memory. So, but you have to allow people to make mistakes if you want them to grow, if you want your team to grow. They just got to know, like, that's okay. Mistakes are part of it. If you're not sharing control, you're not trusting your team. And so that builds discontent and people don't trust you. And guess what? You're not going to go as far as you want to go. And probably team members are going to leave. It's amazing the control and power you really have by being a leader, because you know what, you can make people quit or you can help people to thrive. I don't know about you, I would rather help people thrive. So it's just being aware of the environment that we're creating at work, of letting other people have a little bit of control, even if it's micro control, even if it's control on their duties. That's good. That's what you want. You want them to have a piece of the pie. You want them to have a say, to be able to give their input. Okay, so I looked it up, I chat GPT'd it, and it said that a lot of times PTSD is outside of the workplace. There's still certain traumas that can happen inside the workplace. And let me read occupational stress, what it said. The term occupational stress refers to stress experienced as a result of work-related factors, including high workloads, low job control, low job control, lack of support, and conflict in the workplace. While occupational stress may not always lead to a diagnosable condition like PTSD, it can still have significant negative impacts on the mental health and well-being. And there was more, we will leave it at that, but at the minimum, like, you can have occupational stress, and I don't think we really fully appreciate how much occupational stress affects our body, how much it affects our health, how much it affects diseases, that kind of thing. So just something to be aware of. Myth number 7 is leadership is about being charismatic or extroverted. Oh man, I hate this one. I am an introvert through and through. Some people might say that I'm an extrovert. I can be confident. Well, you can be confident in being an introvert, but I can be loud, but that's usually when nobody else is stepping up, and I feel like somebody has to step up here, or if I'm around family and friends. If I'm around family and friends, I can be talkative, loud, and a lot of times people confuse loud with being an extrovert. That's not true. I gain my energy from being by myself, not from being around people. But guess what? The good news is you don't have to be an extrovert. You don't have to be an extrovert. You don't have to be charismatic to be in a supervisory role. You just don't. So there are different ways that an extrovert might do things than an introvert. And I'll be honest, some of the ways extroverts do things just drive me bonkers and they drain me. But that's less about them. I already know this is about me because at a certain point, I just tune out, right? I can only listen to somebody talk for so long and then my brain cuts off like, oh gosh, I can't hear anymore. Stop, stop. Anybody else do that? But you know what? That's fine. I realize, okay, that's my introversion. I just want them to stop talking because they're talking for way too long. But then it's like, okay, you just notice the differences. But if you're an introvert, then you find different ways of doing things. Maybe you're more thoughtful in the way you go about things. Maybe you let other people talk. You don't have to be the star of the show. You're willing to let your teammates talk. You're willing to let them give their opinions. You're willing to let them do some of the training. It's not a one person show. So I think that's the beauty of having an introvert be in a leadership role or be in a supervisory role because you don't have to do it all yourself. You're willing to let other people step up and take charge. Effective leadership doesn't require you to be super charismatic or extroverted. Three important things for introverts that are leaders is using your listening skills, empathy, being empathetic to what other people have to say and to what they're experiencing. And number three is thoughtful decision making. Maybe you're not going to just dive right into a decision, but you're going to think about it a little bit. You're going to look about it, or you're going to look at it from all different angles. And you know what? Just because you're a thoughtful decision maker doesn't mean that your decisions are any less powerful. And it also doesn't mean that you can't be a decisive decision maker because you know what? Sometimes you have to think through things and you have the luxury of taking some time. And then other times in like a crisis emergency situation, you got to make a decision and you got to do it quick. But you can do that. But where time allows, then be thoughtful about your decisions. That's okay. Or one of my favorite things is like when employees come to you with a question, unless they're brand spanking new and they truly don't know, if they've been on a little bit and they should know better, you say, "What do you think?" Put it back on them. Let them come up with their answer. I personally like my employees to come to me with, "Okay, here's what I'm planning. This is what I'm thinking. What do you think about that plan?" Cool. I can deal with that. I like that. That's not me not knowing the answer. That's giving them a chance to enhance their leadership skills, to gain some confidence in what they believe. And you know what? They probably won't have that confidence immediately when they first come to you. They're probably not going to be that confident, but over time, it increases their confidence. And one thing I've had people ask me before is, okay, but what about when I say, what do you think? And they say, I don't know. Okay, if you did know, what would you say? And then you'd be surprised how many people actually have an answer that second time. If you're like, if you did know, if you had to guess, what would you say? And people so often come back with the actual answer. They were just hesitating to say it for one reason or another, but they know it deep down. Or they don't want to look stupid, they don't want to embarrass themselves, anything like that. So sometimes you have to give a little bit extra prompting. If you did know, what would you say? Remember, there is so much value in diverse leadership. Everybody doesn't have to be the same. We can't just have a world of introverted leaders either. It's got to be introverted and extroverted. You've got to have people of different nationalities, different races, different life experiences, right? All of that stuff, different genders, people that identify in different ways, all of that stuff really helps to build a strong team. It takes so many different perspectives, not one person's perspective. We talked about this earlier. Not one person's perspective is the right way, is the only way. Multiple perspectives are better. Multiple personality types are better. So if you're an introvert, yes, you are still a leader. You can still be a leader. You can still step into a formal leadership role, be a manager, be some sort of supervisor. You can do it. Believe me, if I can do it, you can absolutely do it. Myth number 8 leadership is about command and control. This is a total myth. Command and control, it doesn't work so great anymore. And Forbes, there was an article in Forbes talking about outdated leadership and how it's changed throughout the pandemic. And it's like, yeah, command and control, being authoritarian isn't working for us anymore. So we have to find different ways of doing everything. So if you're like, oh, I don't like that boss that was like so authoritarian, that's not me, then guess what? There's good news. You don't have to be that kind of supervisor. You don't have to be that kind of leader. If that's not your jam, good. It's not, most people don't like it. I was gonna say it's not most people's jam. We're not into that. Um, really, you know what? There might be a situation, like if it's an emergency, say you work in law enforcement, say you're a firefighter, you're in the military, something like that. There are times where you're just gonna have to be an authoritarian. Like you're gonna have to say, this needs to happen now. Maybe not even in that way, but you have to make a decision, be decisive, go with it. Okay, cool. But that doesn't have to be your overall leadership style. So if you don't want to be in command and control all the time, for the most part, you don't have to be, especially not all the time. You might have to make critical decisions and make them quickly. Yes, that's true. But it doesn't mean that you have to be authoritarian all the time and hardcore. That's not a leader. At least not to me, it's not. So authoritarian leadership, it leads to disempowerment, disengagement. People don't want to engage with you if all you're going to do is boss them around. And it also leads to resentment amongst team members. People are going to resent what an authoritarian leader has to say, and they're going to resent being bossed around, there not being any trust, them not being able to have any ownership in the decisions that they want to make. It's not good for the team. So consider a collaborative leadership approach. Engage all of your team members, engage the company. People need to be brought in and ask their opinion once in a while. People need to be brought in on communication. I think a lot of times companies struggle with communication, like from the top down. And so the people at the bottom that just got hired have no clue what the boss, what the CEO is wanting because it's never communicating or it's never communicated. The information doesn't seem to trickle through. So if you're a leader that is good at communication and sharing stuff, people appreciate the smallest of things, the smallest bits of information. So don't be afraid to do things a little bit more your way. You don't have to follow a traditional or an old school way of doing things. Number 9 is a myth that leaders always have to make tough decisions by themselves. You don't have to go it alone. There are often other people who have gone before you, who are willing to answer your questions. Sometimes there's been things I'm like, I'm not comfortable with this. And so I say that. So I tell somebody, hey, this is what's going on. What would you do? Do you have any thoughts on that? Or I'm not comfortable with doing this. Why is it this way? But you're gonna have to make tough decisions as a leader, but nobody says that you have to do it alone. That is what you have co-workers for. That's what you have supervisors for. You have other people for that you can lean on a little bit. Now, I would say have some discretion, right? You don't tell everybody the decision. You certainly don't tell all your employees or the people that work for you. But if there's people at your same leadership level or above, then you talk to them and get their feedback. Or like you might have a section that investigates internal affairs, that investigates wrongdoing, that sort of thing. And so you're like, oh, well, what was the past history on this? Before I make this tough decision to get this employee in trouble, what is past precedence? What is past precedence? What's been done before? Employee discipline is a good example here because if I have to make a tough decision on how an employee is going to get disciplined, then guess what? I can look at past precedents and I can say, okay, what went on here? What was the punishment? What did they do? And then compare it to mine and hopefully make a similar recommendation. Unless the other one seemed way off or way out of left field, I really believe that things should be consistent throughout a company. And so if you can keep consistent, that's good. But don't be afraid to ask questions. You don't have to do the tough things alone. And the more you do go through the tough things, and you have to make tough decisions and you're bringing other people in to ask them questions, then you start to build resilience yourself. You start to realize, okay, I don't necessarily have to ask the question. Sorry, my dog's barking in the background, but I'm going to leave that. It's like, stop doing the podcast. Sorry. So don't be afraid to use the people around you and to ask questions and look at past precedents to make tough decisions. Myth number 10, leadership is about inspiring fear. This is so not true. You do not have to create fear and intimidation in other people. I feel like I'm doing this holding a fist as I'm talking. That's okay. It's this fear and intimidation, but you don't have to do that to be a good leader. Again, fear-based leadership leads to resentment, disengagement, and decreased productivity. Who wants that, right? So if you're like, I don't feed into that fear-based system, nope, you don't have to do it. Push it away, push it to the side, do things your way. And even if you become a leader and everybody else is doing fear-based tactics, that doesn't mean you have to do the same thing. I don't know about you, but I've never been inspired from a leader or supervisor, boss, from them trying to make me scared. That's never made me like, yes, I want to work for you. So don't feel like you have to do the fear-based principles to get people to do what you want them to do. Actually, what is the saying? You catch more flies with honey? I don't know. But actually working with people, being authentic, getting to know them, having a team-like environment, that is going to make you a much better leader. That is going to inspire people much more. They want to do something for a leader that they like. But if you're a leader that scares them, intimidates them, or even just gives off that impression that that's what you're trying to do, most people aren't going to like you. And you're not really going to get anywhere on your mission. Whatever that thing is that you want to accomplish as a leader, it's probably not going to happen if you're using fear-based tactics. Okay, so overall, you can be the type of leader you want to be. There's so many misconceptions out there thinking we have to be the perfect leader, or we have to be an extroverted leader, or be more authoritarian. Guess what? Not true. And if you try to be those things and that's not you, that's certainly not going to help at all, because people can see that. When we're doing something that is not aligned with our values, then it just comes across as fake. People can just sense it. So be you. Try your way of doing things. And if you don't like the leadership that's around you, if you don't like the bosses, if you don't like things that are going on and you want to make a change, then it is your time to step into a leadership role. I am so passionate about this. We need more women in leadership roles, but we also need good people in leadership roles who are willing to do things different than they've been done in the past. And that is you, my friend. You are a badass. You are a leader. I know it because you're listening to this podcast. So I'm going to encourage you to start stepping into leadership roles or more leadership roles. Start pushing your boundaries a little bit. How can you take on more responsibility at work? How can you make a change at work? You don't have to be a supervisor to make a change. So I want to hear from you. Head on over to Instagram and let me know. Take a screenshot of this episode and tell me, which myth did you learn from? Which myth shocked you? Maybe you thought it was true initially, and now it's like, oh, maybe it's not true. I want to hear from you. Which myth resonated with you the most? Hit me up on Instagram at Ordinary to Badass, and I will see you on Thursday. And with that, we'll end our show. Tell the badass women out there staying in the arena, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, own it and get after it.
Now that you've listened to this episode of Ordinary to Badass, we want to hear from you. Go to our website, ordinarytobadass.com/podcast, and submit your own experience on how you took your life from ordinary to badass, and get the chance to be on a future spotlight episode of the show. That's ordinarytobadass.com/podcast. While you're waiting for the next episode of the show, wipe off the sweat, dust off the dirt, and get back in the arena.